I'm going to start us off with something frightening, a scare real fast. So don't be alarmed when I reach into my pocket here and pull out a cell phone. This is something that makes the film exhibition industry afraid, because not just because a cell phone has the power to disrupt a viewing experience or potentially steal intellectual property from the theater or the distributor, but the phone has this property that lets us watch feature-length films from beginning to end via applications and streaming services and video on demand. I can watch a movie or throw a movie from my phone up onto my screen at home. And what is the fear is that this will keep people home. It will keep them from going out to the movies, because why would I ever get dressed and get in my car and use up my gas, go through the whole hassle of trying to find parking and stand in line just to buy $15 popcorn? It doesn't make any sense. There's such an ease and accessibility to streaming straight from your home, right? And it's not even the newness of a film that gets people out into the seats. The amount of time between when a film sees its first release and when it's on one of these services is shrinking and shrinking rapidly. There are some films you can even watch day of, straight from your home, instead of just going to the theater. And yet, I find myself constantly making that journey, straight there to go and watch a movie. And I thought, why is that? Why would I even bother to go out of my own way? And I believe that when I go to the theater, I never truly feel alone. That there's something significant and there's value to having a sort of communal, shared viewing experience. Part of that is because of the physical nature of a theater, right? You're all in here together with people around you. And that creates a kind of intimacy in a setting where you watch film. There are moments, dramatic moments, sad moments, happy moments, exciting moments, comedic moments, and you all will get, and I find myself doing this, we all get caught up in those moments, right? Somebody in the audience laughs and you all follow suit. Somebody starts sobbing violently and you tear up a little. It's that kind of energy that sort of we build upon when we're in a movie theater with each other. And a lot of my best experiences are seeing a film in those kind of group environments. Even when the film itself is not necessarily engaging on its own. One of the films I had the most fun at, and you're gonna laugh at me, but I saw the 2007 Michael Bay Transformers, right? When it came out. And that film, going back and trying to watch that film, there's no joy in it. And there's no joy in the sort of rest of the franchise. But in the moment, we, as a sort of collective, were very excited seeing that film. We were all screaming and applauding and cheering. And I didn't really get that from the rest of the franchise. That was something that kind of only existed there in the moment. And I think it also helped that, one, I'm a huge Transformer fan. And a lot of the people in the room are people who grew up in the 80s watching the cartoon. So for us, there was this anticipation of seeing characters like Optimus Prime, Starscream, Megatron on the screen for the first time. And when they appeared, we all sort of got in that anticipation buildup and that fervor buildup. There's these sort of fandoms that exist around certain properties. You might have experienced if you ever went out to a kind of midnight premiere, right, of movies. There are people in lines dressed up as characters from the film. I've been to premieres for like Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, Marvel movies, DC movies. There's that culture that's sort of built around the within the fans and the fandom that happens even outside of the theater, right? You're excited being in the seats and seeing the film, but you're also excited in the anticipation and build up outside the theater. And one of the cool things about the Transformers example is I got to meet a guy in a full painted Optimus Prime costume, it was fantastic. He made it himself out of cardboard. And that's something you just can't get unless you go out there and you try to experience stuff with other fans. And we see this not just in these kind of big genre films, right? There is a sort of underground kind of subculture, cult film status where that line between the kind of anticipation within a theater and the excitement and buildup outside of the theater blur. And it's no longer about just seeing the film. It's about sort of interacting with the fans and creating something together. It's about kind of audience participation. Yeah. So you know where I'm going with this, right? I'm going to Rocky Horror, which is the sort of premier cult film. In the 70s in New York, at the Waverly Theater, people started shouting during the screenings of the film, it's kind of sacrilegious if you think about it. You're taught to be quiet during the movie theater and to not, basically, not interact with it. But people went out of their way and they built, the fans of Rocky built an entire kind of canon and script and an experience around the movie. It didn't become about Rocky Horror itself, it became about living that experience. The first time I ever watched Rocky Horror Picture Show, I did it by myself. I was sitting at home, I was like, I guess I'll watch this film. I heard a lot of good things about it, and it was horrific. I hated every moment of it. I was like, well, some of these songs are catchy, but I don't really get the camp horror, not kind of like allusion to the old horror cinema stuff, like rock aesthetic, and there's so many songs, and the first few are good, but the rest of them kind of drag on. But it's not until I was there in the theater seeing it with fans the first time, being a virgin is what they would call people who have never experienced Rocky Horror before, and you get to see the spectacle of it. The shouting the callbacks at the screen and throwing the toilet paper and the stale bread and an entire shadow cast that comes on stage and performs the film. That's kind of the beauty of that, right? All kinds of cult cinema have their own followings and subcultures, and we even see that move not just from the sort of well-established cult film, but the kind of new age of cult film. A lot of you might have seen a film called The Room. The Room is touted as kind of the worst film ever made. It's so bad it's good. The appeal of it is that you're watching something terrible and laughing along with others at it. And my first introduction was on YouTube. I watched like clips of it, and I was like, well, that's terrible. Why would anyone spend all this money making, like millions of dollars making this terrible movie? But that kind of midnight cult following fandom around it and the fervor of Room fans is infectious. I got to go to screenings here in Dallas that were midnight screenings at kind of local independent cinemas, but also I was privileged enough to meet Tommy Wiseau and go to the 8th anniversary screening of The Room in LA, where there is all of these rituals associated with the film. Every time Greg Sestero's character gets on screen, we all say, "Hi, Mark." And every time Lisa or Denny or someone enters, there's things, we shout at them. During all the scenes where the characters are playing football in the movie, we take literal footballs and we start passing the pigskin out right in front of the theater. We get up out of our seats and we're in the aisles, and there's that kind of fun magic in that. Anytime a spoon is in a framed picture on screen, we all take plastic spoons we have and we're throwing them, literally chucking them at the screen in the theater. But it's probably my favorite moment of that screening in particular that I went to was during, I think it's the 3rd sex scene in the film. It's basically like a recut of an earlier sex scene. They needed time to sort of fill the movie, so they just threw in the same shots. We all got up out of our seats and we started singing, "Let's all go to the lobby." And that's exactly what we did. We all left the auditorium and we were there in the lobby, hanging out while the duration of that scene played on. And at that point, we were removed from what would be a traditional movie-going experience. We were all hanging out, right? It was there's this sort of community that existed. We were there not just to watch a movie and have a good time, but we were there to interact with one another, and we were there to sort of talk to people and engage with people. And I think that's one of the most important parts about sort of physical gathering spaces is there's an opportunity to create bonds, right, and create friendships, because if you and I have similar interests and we like the same kind of things, then we're naturally going to talk about them, and we get excited about them, and we become sort of part of a community. And that's kind of the beauty of art, is sort of sharing in that art and sharing your passions with others. I think, personally, I believe if as long as there are people for whom art matters, that there will be communities and there will be gathering places where we can all come together. And they exist. They exist even if your passion isn't film like mine. Maybe you like some other sort of hobby or activity. Those places exist for you. There are places that will welcome you with open arms, but the only way to find them is to go out there and take that first step and leave the home.